Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining us on our podcast.
All
Would you
right,
like
thank you.
would you like to introduce yourself? Who are you? Where are you from?
I'm Chris Harrison. I'm a UK-based hypnotherapist and coach, and I specialise in helping people overcome stress, trauma, and anxiety-related issues.
Mhm. Thank you. And our favorite question is, why should the audience stay until the end of this episode with us?
Well, hopefully you're going to learn something. That's the idea. Is it all going
Okay,
to plan?
we hope so. We hope so. Um, Chris, we spoke last time and you explained me that there are some root cause beliefs leading at the end to burnout. What would you say are the most common beliefs?
A lot of my clients are business owners, professionals, and a lot of them come with the old-fashioned belief of if they put all the effort in a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, that their life then will be different at the end of that and they can reap the rewards. But what they fail to see along the path is life doesn't work like that. And you might have that image in your head that you're chasing towards, but other people in your life have that image as well. I mentioned someone that rang me a couple of weeks ago, got a business and he's been putting the hours in all these years, and now he realizes that the kid that lives in his house doesn't know him and he doesn't know the kid because he hasn't been there. And that
Yeah,
kid was a baby when he started, and now he's like 10 or 11, something like that. Another 10 years, he's going to be a fully grown adult. So,
yeah,
and if he's still not where he wants to be with that business, what's he gained? You know? And
yeah.
again, things like that, that's what's quite common. I see quite a lot. And I used to be like it myself when I had my first business.
Mm.
Completely wasted my 20s by chasing a dream that never happened.
And it never happened.
Never happened.
Similarly to my situation, I also had some ideas and it didn't happen to me. Um, we are next to our next question. What would you say is the biggest mistake parents make with their kids?
Trying to train them to be how the parent wish they were, or um, trying to go back in time, if that makes sense, but using the kid as that um, sort of time machine instead of teaching the kid to be their own person, to grow into an adult, to be their own person. They put all their regrets, they could have done this better, should have done that better, onto the kid. And it's easy to do, but I think that is one of the biggest mistakes parents make.
I was playing soccer as a child, and I suppose I would really, enjoy seeing my son playing soccer. Um, but it's kind of vicious circle. Like we enjoy watching our children doing the same stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, my partner, I'm guessing it was just an American docudrama thing, but it was about these kids, and they got to have been about no older than 10, and they were all girls and they were dancers, but their parents who wanted to be that but can't because they're now adults and they can't do it anymore, and they're not not built for the dance world and all that, push these kids beyond just stupidity to make them into dancers, which again, fine if they're a bit older and that's what they want to be, and it's a tough world to be in, and so on and so forth. But these girls wanted to dance because they enjoy dancing, and that
Yeah,
was being taken away from them by their parents because they had to be professional dancers and they had to be professional dancers now.
yeah,
I think that's where the line, there's a line somewhere where it's pushing them to be the best at what they do and to have fun with it and that, and then there's pushing them too far again because the parents wish they did something better, wish they did something different in their life, and it never materialized. So now the kid is the next one again, forced to do it.
Yeah. And I see it both perspectives. As a parent, I don't think consciously about it right now. I recognize the pattern, but especially as a child, the children, they don't have so many perspectives. They don't have enough experience. They don't have enough possibilities to change the world.
No.
So I can imagine it's very difficult for the kids to decide, am I a real dancer because I love to dance, or am I somebody who was pushed towards this direction?
Yeah.
Were you trying, please?
Kids don't know anything. Kids are a clean slate when they're born, and everything that they become is a learnt behaviour. They pick it up from friends at school, parents, guardians, aunties, uncles, nans, granddads. Everybody they come in contact with, they take little bits out, and the brain stores it and becomes the person that they're going to be. So it's about giving them that right material that will help them when they're in the real world.
Yeah, it's a very nice idea. If you think about yourself, were you trying to, to go the same direction as your father did, or your parents wanted you to go?
No, I come from a family of builders. My dad was a floor screeder, which I don't know if they have it in all countries, but in our floors here we have a layer of what's called screed, and it helps with the floor, so it's just not on. It's a layer in between what will be the finished floor and the concrete. He did that. His dad was a floor screeder. My uncle, my other uncle, he was carpenter, window fitter.
Mm.
And I was always told as a kid, get a trade, become a builder. You can do all these amazing things, and that was sort of how I was brought up. I left school, I went to college, learned to do brickwork and carpentry. You wouldn't want me building a wall or fixing your door frame, I can tell you that. But it wouldn't, I went to work with my dad as a teenager on the building sites for a bit, but it never really appealed to me. It never stuck with me. It was something I never really wanted to do. My dream at the time was to be a driver. I wanted to be a delivery driver. That's eventually what I went off and did. But I was always sort of, I weren't pushed as in you will be a builder, but that was the constant, getting
the raw material.
Yeah.
You called it raw material. Yeah. And what was appealing to you as a driver?
Well, even before I could legally drive, I always liked driving, the idea of driving. And then when I was in my early 20s, I got a loan, got a van, and started my haulage company. And it went from there, really. As I say, dream never lasted.
Yeah, life happens. Life happens between. We can come back to that question again, but let me ask something about your fatherhood. Can you remember a moment that revealed something new for you? Like you are a stepfather, you are a role model, and then a moment something clicked and you recognized something that has always been there, but you didn't know about it consciously.
I think as my role as a stepfather, it's difficult for me to pinpoint certain things. I make plenty of mistakes, but when he does things right, my partner's son, and it could be the smallest of things, and if I've sort of advised him on that, then that's a good feeling, that I've done right by him. And again, my dad was the same. He was he weren't sort of strict with the discipline, but he was strict. He weren't over the top because he come from a family that was over the top with discipline.
Yeah,
I knew when I'd done wrong, and I knew when I'd done right, and I hope that I pass that balance on to as a role model, as a stepfather.
yeah. Discipline is kind of a word with a difficult definition because we have so many people. If they hear something about discipline, they just avoid it and they just disappear. And for me, discipline always meant to show my potential. So if I am disciplined, I can think about something and I can do it, and I can do anything I want to. That's the whole idea behind my discipline.
Yeah.
What is discipline for you?
Again, I think there's that line there. Again, how you describe it, that's hit the nail on the head, really. I mean,
Yeah,
discipline should be there to push us to be our best, and when we're not feeling our best, we have that level there that we can say, right, this is just a temporary thing. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep pushing, and you get through that bit, and then you have some sort of mental reward at the end of it, and say to yourself, you know what, I'm bloody pleased I carried on doing that. Other people take it too far, and discipline's not discipline, it's abuse, and that's the different level of it. And obviously that's got no positive uh, outcomes at all, really.
yeah, yeah. We wanted to talk about, old patterns, old beliefs. And I have the impression that this kind of old discipline was meant to be a kind of punishment. But today I see discipline very positive skill for everyone who is trying to achieve something or who is trying to enjoy life. Because this feeling I can do something and I can do whatever I want to, it's amazing. It's great.
Yeah.
And you cannot learn it at school. At least I didn't learn it at school.
I always joke and I say I hate going to kids' parties because I hear parents raising what is going to be clients or therapists later on. And they don't mean it, they don't do it in a nasty way, but they put their patterns and their responses onto their kids. Their kids are feelers. Their kids will go to, a 3-year-old kid wouldn't think twice about dressing up in a Spider-Man or a Batman costume, whatever,
Yeah.
and going to a supermarket. Couldn't care less what people think, but the
Mm.
adult's embarrassment,
Yeah.
that's then pushed onto the kid. So then the kid believes, well, I can do what I want, but I can't do that. And then the
Yeah.
next thing, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that. And by the time they get to the teens and they've been told endless times that they can't do something, but they believe it.
Yeah.
And getting that discipline back at that age to be able to say to them, well, you can do it. And if you do fail doing it, well, figure out what went wrong and sort that out.
Yeah.
It's harder to do than from if you do it from when they're a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. But as a parent, you have to be conscious about it
Yeah.
because I see myself, my patterns, language patterns. So the things I'm using daily, it's not perfect. And I see, I sometimes I say something and I'm listening to it and it was wrong. It was wrong. It was not okay. And it's, not helping my child.
Yeah.
It's kind of killing a small part of my child each time I'm saying something negative or something uh, that is not empowering my child. Because
Yeah.
I would like to empower whatever I'm saying. I'd like to empower my children so they know they can do anything what they want to. And it's very difficult because my language patterns just pattern and it's not conscious. But a funny story is that you were explaining a Spider-Man in the supermarket. And plenty of parents refer to that situation, that the child is in the supermarket, wants to have a toy. The parents don't want to have the toy, so the child is screaming and it's lying on the floor and shouting. And the whole situation, so I had it twice in my life, and the whole situation is really easy if the adult is calm. Because as an adult, as a parent, you can just sit down and wait for your child, and the child is probably gonna, scream for 5 minutes or 5 seconds, depending on your child, and then everything's gonna be fine. But it's very difficult for me as a parent to stay calm while my small Spider-Man is lying down and crying.
But again, and I know I'm not here to give people parental advice or anything like that, but I do know, about patterns and how they are put in the brain.
Yeah.
And normally when a kid does that, the parent gets embarrassed, so ends up bribing the kid, so the kid gets a reward. In the kid's brain now, it's, well, if they say no first time, if I react this way, I get something in the end. It might not be the thing I wanted originally, but I'm going to get something.
Yeah.
They get the happiness kick in their brain and they've won. And then they'll think next time, right, I'll do it again, and I'll do it again, and I'll do it again. And that's how patterns are made.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was me, I'd just take the kid out the shop, put the kid in the car and drive home. Will not get anything behaving like that, simple as that. And I'll learn that pattern.
So I was sitting on the floor and waiting for my children. But everyone has a different solution.
Yeah. It's,
which is okay, because everyone is different. And also the image of fatherhood, it's just an image. And when you are a father, it's gonna be different for you. So it's also fun to have this conversation with you, because as we mentioned, we have different experiences and we just have our own styles regarding life and fatherhood.
Yeah. I mean, if people heard how because I'm quite a sarcastic person, and when I know somebody and have a joke with them, I'm really serious, but they know not to take me serious. So when I'm joking with my stepson or whatever, if he's doing my head in, I'll say things to him like, the Victorians had it right and they should bring the workhouses back and you should be like it was in Oliver Twist, and then I'll be happy. Things like
that. And are you sure that it's not hurting your stepchild?
No, he knows not to listen to them.
And how old is he?
15.
Yeah, okay. Much older than my children.
When I need to have a serious conversation, there's a difference between, he did something the other week with his mate, and I'm just like looking at him. I can't remember what he did now, but I'm looking at him with disbelief. I'm shaking my head, and I'm just like straight face on, and I'm there saying to him, I'm going, why do people have kids nowadays? They are not a good return on investment. I was like, in the medieval times, they would have all been helping on the farm and making money for the family. What do kids do now? Nothing. And like his mate's looking at me like he doesn't know if I'm being serious or not.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, but
he's having a laugh. Like.
The history of humanity was very different, and I suppose that we have plenty of patterns, from our ancestors. We do not even know about it. But yeah, it's sarcasm is dangerous because some people, they don't understand it.
Oh no, people who don't understand, they don't like me. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, if you know, some people, and it's fine. But I stopped doing it with strangers because it kind of didn't work out for me. So let's talk about fear. What was a new fear when you become a stepfather? Was there something new in your life that you weren't afraid before?
I think I mean, up until that point, I think the only thing I ever had depending on me was my dog, you know.
Yeah.
And up until then, it was that was it, like. And now there's this kid in my life, and my partner's never pushed me to be that father figure, you know. She's never forced me to, you know, now you're with me, you're also a stepdad, you know. She's never done that.
Yeah.
And I've just sort of naturally sort of gone into it over the period that I've been with her, like. And every day is a new day, and every day is a new learning thing. Every year he gets a year older, and he's changing mentally, physically. He's, you know, um, he's got all the bloody hormones and that now, you know, and he's starting to have his own voice. And at the minute, we're on this thing where, like I mentioned before, kids pick things up from people. He does bits where he says things, and I think he means it sarcastically, like I do, but he hasn't quite got the tonality, so it can come out sounding nasty.
Yeah.
So I sort of have to have a word with him now and again about that. And I was saying, look, how I do things might not be the way for you. You need to find out what's for you. I says,
Yeah.
you're at the beginning of your learning stages with it now. You're about to go into the real world, the world of work, the world of college, and whatever he decides to do. And he's going to meet people, all kinds of people, nice people, shitty people.
Yeah.
And he's got to learn when to hold his tongue. He's got to learn to know when to stand up for himself. And hopefully, between me and his mom, we're teaching him the right way. But that fear there of that's what he's depending on me for, you know, or looking at me for that sort of advice. And I won't say that I always do give the right advice, but if he takes that wrong advice and it has a big effect on his life, then I'm responsible for that, and I have to hold my hands up to that, you know. And that's a fear, I guess, if you, or at least plays on my mind that that's a possibility. I don't want, you know, I don't want him to get something wrong because I've misinformed him or misguided him.
Mm. But you started with the dog.
Yeah, I mean, I had to feed the dog, keep the dog alive, you know, and that was the only sort of responsibility I had, really. And you know, at that point, that was the only dependent I had, was the dog.
Yeah, I have two dogs and two children, and you know the dogs are, you know, really easy, but still we had some actions, you know, and
Well,
it's not always easy if you have a dog, especially that you have to, you know, go for a walk sometimes.
well, I rescued my dog from a house. They'd been kicked out, and they left the dog in there to die.
Oh.
So me and my then wife, we uh, ended up rescuing it and saving it. And but like when we got her, we only thought she was going to be alive a matter of weeks, months, if we were lucky.
Mm.
She was that underfed and whatever else. But I had her for 4 or 5 years, I think.
Mm.
And then because she was about 8 when we rescued her, we reckon, and the vet reckons, and then yeah, she died about 11ish, 12ish, yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
My one of my dogs is 10, so
yeah.
right now I yeah, I figured out it's kind of, you know, an old dog, and one day he's probably not gonna be with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's go to the next question. What mistake changed the way you parent today?
When I can't really pinpoint one mistake, or I make mistakes regular. I think the one recently that I learned from was obviously um, my stepson's going into his GCSE years now at school, which are like big exams for them. Lots of homework, lots of revision, and all of that. Do I agree with the amount of work? No, I don't. Do I believe he has to do it? Yes, I do. So I'm trying to get him to do it, because obviously when he's at work, he has to do things he doesn't want to do, and he has to, or if he ever starts his own business, then he has to put the work in and be uncomfortable. And that's what I want him to sort of learn from that and adapt to that and make it work for him. He obviously, as we all did at that age, just see it as I go to school and then I've got to do crappy school work at home and I don't want to do it. So I was sort of getting a bit more disciplined with him and turning more into that coach sort of thing rather than a role model, a parenting model. And it got to a point then when it started having, me and my partner started having words with each other over it and that, and so I sort of took a step back from that now, and she's focusing more on that, and it's having a better effect, because I realised what I was doing wasn't having a positive outcome, so we needed to change it. So that's what we did, and we had a discussion and we changed our approach, and he seems to be doing a lot better with it now. So.
Yeah, and you said you had a discussion, which is I don't know what kind of discussion you had, but from my partnership, I have different types of discussions, and some of them are really emotional and unpleasant.
Yeah.
Was it that kind?
Well, I had to admit that what I was doing was wrong, or how I was going about it wasn't being as beneficial as what I wanted it to be. So I had to take a step back, I had to change things, and that's what we did, and to get a better outcome, not only for us, but for him as well.
Yeah, but
He's got a lot going on in his life, not just with his school and whatever else, but also his personal life with things is a bit, he doesn't know how to communicate that, and so again we have to teach him how to do that and the proper way for that. But normally he bottles it up until he starts snapping and rebelling and stuff like that, and then we'll have a say to him what's going on and what do you want to talk about, and then he'll talk about it then, and then we'll come up with a solution with him. But he needs to learn to vent that bit further down the line before it turns into anger and things like that. But again, every day is a learning process for all of us, I think.
Yeah, I see a challenge in this loving communication as a partnership. Sometimes it's really difficult, even if we are talking about our children. It's very emotional depending on the situation, and I have the impression that we don't learn it at school, how to really communicate with other people without hurting them.
What do we learn at school? I mean, like I say, I think school is still old-fashioned. School, I don't know what it's like in Germany, but school in the UK is very old-fashioned, and it needs a big upgrade on what they're teaching them, and they don't learn how to pay their taxes or do a sort of tax assessment, or they don't learn how to take out house insurance or any things that are actually going to help them in life. But they'll learn about Shakespeare,
which is very important for some of them.
For some of them, if that's what they want to chase, But to me, in my personal opinion, what? Like in a history class, learn about Shakespeare, not in an English lesson. We don't speak English like that anymore.
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of Shakespeare.
Don't get the appeal either.
I just miss some other skills that we could learn at school, but it's a different topic. Maybe not for today. So let's talk about your story, because the podcast is about people, experiences, stories, fatherhood. Where would you say, where did your story begin?
Well, I'm guessing when I was a child,
Yes.
like I said before, my dad was a builder and he worked hard and he worked a lot of hours, and he always provided the money and house over our head and food and clothes,
No.
and he always did that. But the one thing I didn't have much of was his time.
No.
But he came from a family of the bloke goes to work and works hard and brings the money in, and that's how he was raised. That's what he did. I always remember as a kid, it was always there, like if I had a question or whatever, but he'd go to work, he'd come home, he'd have his dinner, he'd go to sleep on the settee. I'd be upstairs playing on my PlayStation or whatever it is I was doing out with my mates. I'd come back home, go to bed, go to school the next day, rinse and repeat. So we'd have a couple of holidays a year and things like that. I had a good childhood, you know. It wasn't, I'm not going to say, oh, woe is me, childhood trauma and all that, because that wasn't the case at all. I started knowing what I know now and what I went through later on in life, that I realised he got it wrong, like so many parents do. When I left school, I got a job as a pot washer in a restaurant. So I went to college. I think a lot of it also stemmed from when I was about 18 when my grand died. And then not long after that, my granddad had got dementia. And it was a case of, got to have been about what, 20, about 20 then. I don't really remember details. I just remember it being quite crap. And my mum would go to work and look after him and do all that. And I'll be honest, I was bloody useless. And a lot of the guilt of what I felt from there went on into what happened later on. After my granddad died, then, or about a year after that, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. And that spread to his brain. They told him there was nothing they could do for him. But then they said, we've got this experimental treatment, and he agreed to it. That completely ruined his quality of life. Dragged him out for 2 years. I'd started my haulage company then, and then when he died, all the accumulation of the trauma and stuff that had happened with my other family members plus him resulted in me getting PTSD. I didn't know that at the time. Running the business, the people I was working for, working with, that burnt me out very fast. And then I spent about 8 years of my life as a burnt out wreck with PTSD.
PTSD is what? What do you mean by PTSD?
Post-traumatic stress disorder. So simply put, it's like burnout, but with trauma as the stressor. So
panic attacks.
I didn't myself, but some people do. Again, there's quite an array of symptoms. Some people have, like I see clients with PTSD. I'm not allowed to diagnose it, but I'm allowed to help them overcome it in the UK. For me, it used to play all day long like a film in my head, of little snippets of that night he died. And it'd play over, and then I'd get the guilt, the shame, the pain, the anger, and it'd all fire up and it'd make me miserable. Some people have night terrors. They wake up screaming in the night because they have these nightmares. I never really suffered for them myself. I would have sort of sensory hallucinations. So I'd be walking. So we brought him home to die, and we had this bed in the living room, and that's where he died. So years after, I'd be walking down the stairs in my mum's house, and I could smell the smell of that night. Not just like a memory, I could smell it as if it was there. And sometimes I'd be sitting watching the telly, and the seat would have been where he would have died, would have been behind the chair, and I could hear him breathing. You know, like when you're watching a horror film and you see the person's face, like how you're looking at me now, and you'll be able to see the ghost, whatever demon behind him. And when I turned round, it's gone. It was literally like that. Like I could hear him as real as I can hear your voice. I'm not a spiritual person. I don't believe in ghosts or any of that. I know it was a hallucination. Didn't know what it was at the time. So I suffered with that.
Let me ask you something, because you didn't know that it was a hallucination.
Yeah.
At that time, you didn't know it. So how did you feel about it?
I thought going mad.
Okay.
Simply put, I thought I was going absolutely crazy, but I wouldn't tell anybody because I didn't want to be labelled that, you know.
Yeah. Because for me, when I had my dark days, when I was in my very dark place, I felt very alone, lonely, and I had this feeling that I'm the only one on the planet and nobody can understand me, so I'm not going to talk about it. Which is, a very dark place.
Yeah. For me, it was, there was two versions of me. There was me, and then there was this monster, this evil person that was growing inside my head.
Okay.
I wanted to protect my family and everybody else from that, so I withdrew myself, thinking I was doing a good thing. All they saw was me being a miserable bastard that wouldn't join in with family things and whatever else, because I never communicated how I was feeling, what I was suffering with, what was going on in there. I was planning up. I was, let's just deal with it. It'll all get better and all that crap. And it got to a point where it nearly took my life. And again, I say to people that it wasn't suicide. I was planning a murder. This other person in my head, this evil monster, needed to die. But to do it, I had to destroy myself. And I come to terms with that. And I was okay with that. And the help I got literally came at the last blooming moment, because I'd got it all planned out what I was going to do. And it literally came right at the last second. And I'll always be thankful for that therapist that helped me,
Yeah. And you explained it, really quickly. So you were planning to kill this part of you? So it's from the logical point of view, it's very logical.
Yeah, I think by that time I'd switched to logical. The emotional part of me was just a mess. Logically, no, I knew it'd be better for everybody if I just ended it. It'd be better for me if I ended it. Couldn't see any other way out, and that's what I was going to do. That's what I decided to do. I was driving for a company at the time. I'd lost my business by them, and lost my business. Me and my wife had split up, and it was also in 2020. So after all that crap with COVID and all that, that we went through, and then 2020 was the worst year. By the Christmas time, I decided have the Christmas break, say bye to my family, spend the Christmas with my family, and then when I went back to work in January, I was going to just stick the works van under a lorry and be done with it. And that's how I was going to end it. And yeah, it was all accepted, and that's what was going to happen. I just happened to visit my auntie at Christmas time. Again, didn't tell her just how miserable I really was or what was going on in there. Just told her I'm fed up and miserable. She gave me this business card for this hypnotherapist she'd seen a couple of years before, and found the bloke up. To this day, I don't know why, because I never spoke to anybody else, never reached out to anybody else, but I just called him and booked in. And he opened up specially for me. He was literally closed. I think when I found him, he was closing his clinic up that day for the Christmas break, and he opened up specially for me. And I'm bloody glad he did, because that first session just changed my life. And
It's fascinating that there are people, taking care of others.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
I know about many people overcome trauma themselves, but I still think back to how I felt, and it still amazes me.
Yeah.
And when I do a trauma removal with people, before I get them to test it, they'll test it themselves, and that little split second in their eyes when it lights up, I know that they've had it, and I know what they're feeling, and that sparks it off for me that, yeah, I love being able to do that.
Yeah, and so so that's the reason why you are doing this coaching and hypnotherapy, because
I help people who are where I was, sort of thing.
Yeah. It's funny, I have similar motivation with my coaching. I want the fathers to have, informed choice, and I want them to know that fatherhood is not easy, especially the first time when you become father.
I think that's very important. I mean, it's pointless me, going on social media and saying I'm Chris Harrison, hypnotherapist and coach. I once had PTSD. I was a burnt-out suicidal wreck, and now I specialise in helping people lose weight. The person I trained off, he's constantly on about that. You have to work with what you're passionate about and what you specialise in, and it is. A lot of hypnotherapists were once whatever, they either had a phobia or out of control anxiety or trauma or whatever it might be, and now they specialise in doing that, right? And I think is why we are and get the better results in the therapy world.
Yeah, and it's very enjoyable to listen to you while you are explaining your story, and plenty of people are talking about trust, and I think that trust happens when we see and hear real stories, because the experience is convincing. So thank you for sharing. I suppose it was not the best time in your life, and I'm happy that somebody
well, at the time it was the worst time in my life, but it was the best time because I'm who I am now. When I was 30 years old when I had my sessions and changed my life, and I'm 36 now, and I'm 6 years into the new me. I know it sounds, but I believe that's who I am. That old me died in that therapy room, and the new me came, and I will never ever, even when the stress of business and things getting on top of me or personal issues. I mean, the past 2 years has been quite stressful, both business wise and personal wise and health wise. But I will never ever be in that position that I was in then. And I think helping people also realise that, my clients, that stress happens and life happens and shit happens and all of that, but it's how you then deal with it and you have better resilience because you've been there and you now understand it more. So you also know there's a better out.
Yeah. and it's great that we can, survive the situation and get stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
So, Chris, something about your partnership. What did you say? How does your role as stepfather affect your relationship with your girlfriend?
I think when I do wrong, or when I've meant to do something one way and it's not gone the way, I've made a mistake,
Yeah.
I can own up to my mistakes. But I'm like everybody else. I don't like them being pointed out. Yeah. But she does, and she's got no problems in being straight up with me. And in the end of it, I love it, and I love her for it, because if I do something wrong, or if I could be doing something better, she will tell me, and she
Yeah.
will say. And that's what I do with my clients, and that's how I like people to be with me. And she does that. And but at the time, it's like, what are you having a go at me for? What are you, you know? And I feel like I'm being attacked, blah blah blah. But then we go away and we both process it, and then we come back and we're all fine. But yeah, that's. But it's made me a better person, being in that environment. Um, 36 years older, I've purposely tried to keep my stresses down. I'm an independent person, but I've got no sort of heavy debts or anything like that. I haven't got a mortgage or any of that stuff, and I choose not to, because I don't want that hassle. I don't want that stress. Thank you very much. And she's very supportive of me, especially doing this, my business. She's been with me really from day one, doing it properly. And she's seen me when I've done things and it's really not gone well. She's listened to all the times I thought about giving it up, but she's always there to pick me up and push me along and sort it out. And yeah, I owe her a lot for what she does for me.
Mm.
Did that answer that question, or did I just go off on one then?
You mentioned something important for me, and it's financial pressure. For me, it was very important to provide for my family, because I had this very old belief that I'm only loved if I provide. If I perform, I'm loved, and I'm gonna survive, because that was the belief from my childhood, where I couldn't survive alone. And you said you are actually avoiding this pressure, so you don't have the mortgage. You try to avoid this financial pressure. I know from our last conversation that you were having your company, and you are trying to earn as much money as possible in a short period of time. It also refers to the next question about burnout. In Germany, we have so many fathers struggling with burnout. What would you say is the connection between, our financial situation and burnout on the other side?
I mean, in the UK, it's very expensive to live here. Rent is ridiculous amounts of money. Food prices are ridiculous, and the wages for a lot of people are piss poor in comparison. There is things supposedly out there to help, but they only help some people. It's quite an unfair system. So people have that pressure to survive, and we're wired up, even in today's age, to be hunter-gatherers. We're not designed to go to work and work how we do, 8 hours a day. And we're not designed to hunt after money, but that's what we have to do day in, day out. Get more money, get more money. And our brains don't understand that and probably never will, because we are animals, and there's no let up from it. Even the people, I mean, when I used to deliver bedroom furniture, I used to get to some of the richest people in the country. They were miserable because they got loads of money and they got the fancy cars, but they've also got the bills to come with it.
Yeah.
They've got to heat their big house. They've got to find 1,500 quid a month for a heating bill.
Yeah.
How you do that? That's pressure.
Yeah, I thought actually if you have plenty of money, everything's gonna be easy. Probably not. It's just a belief.
I've come to learn that money and being rich is a mindset, and it doesn't matter how much you've got. If you've not got the mindset to make money and to get money to make more, you'll always be poor. You might have the fancy cars, but have you then got a Ferrari in your garage and you're paying £2,000 a month lease fee on that, or the loan fee for that? Well, what are you doing, to make sure you've got that £2,000 a month, or are you constantly under the stress of someone's going to come and take that car away from me because I need to get that money?
Yeah.
You might look good to people around you, but if you're under that stress, you ain't happy. And if you ain't happy, what's the bloody point?
Yeah, it's so easy, while we are talking about it, it's so easy to understand it and to see the image. You said there are some patterns. I suppose that the pattern is that the more we earn, the more we spend. So it's not that we are programmed to earn money and to let the money work for us. Instead, we are always working, always spending more, earning more, spending more.
Yeah.
So it's never gonna be money working for us in that mindset.
Yeah, if you got that mindset, yeah. And again, that's something I've only learned in the past few years, and I'm still learning it and changing.
Yeah.
If I knew now what I knew when I was 20, life would be different.
We hope so.
Can't go back. Another point to make to people, I now look into investing and things like that heavily. Once I split up with my wife and had to sell the house and all of that. When that money went through, that was what, 2021, I think. If I'd invested in 2021 half of my money in gold, by the end of last year, I wouldn't have to work again. I wouldn't have to worry about working again, because I would have had the money from that to probably make the rest of my life comfortable.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I can't go back in time, so there's no point winding myself up about it.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, everyone was talking about Bitcoins and everyone wanted to be rich with Bitcoins.
No.
Somehow it didn't work out for everyone.
No.
But I have the impression that it's always like that only a very few people get rich from the idea, and all the others are just, losing.
And as well, when you learn to read the charts on the markets and stuff like that, you realise all the noise you hear, all the negativity, all of that. That's what it is. It's noise, and noise makes certain people a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. The rich people making money.
Yeah. It's a very, it's a very deep knowledge you are sharing. Thank you for that. How would you see, what is your role as a stepfather? Probably not to make jokes all the day, sarcastic jokes.
I don't know. That sort of comes with it, I guess. But again, that's my way as well of So that's how I am. And like I say, if I like you, if I like the person, and so I sort of am. But I want the best. I always want the best for people, you know. Um, and I have got that tough love approach, whether it be with members of my family or friends or clients or whatever. That's just who I am. And
Yeah.
so I'll do so that. So my role for him really is to be that guide, that person that can show him the way, and when he's done wrong, pull him up on it and say, look, maybe you could have done this better. How could you have done it better? And question it rather than tell, because you can tell people the best knowledge and advice in the world, but they're going to rebel against it. They
Yeah.
need to process it, and they need to come up. So I try to question it more when he's done wrong, and he does usually come up with the right solutions. Um, and when shit hits the fan in his life, he does come up with the right solutions to that. It's most of the time off his own bat. Um, like I say to his mum, he ain't a bad lad. We're not picking him up from the police station every 2 minutes. He's not doing drugs. He's not, getting pissed in the park and things like that. Is at the moment our biggest thing is he don't want to do his own work and he's rebelling against it. That's not a biggie. That'll be fine. We can
Yeah.
sort that. You know, it's but yeah. So if we can guide him, if I can guide him and be that person that keeps him grounded, and there'll be times when he won't like me for it, but that's fine. I never liked my dad when he used to sit on the end of my bed whilst I was reciting times tables, and I just wanted to read my magazines or watch the telly. We've all been there.
Yeah.
So, again, part of growing up, and it's a part of I'm still growing up.
Yeah. You seem to be quite happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. It's cool to have happy parents.
Yeah. And again, kids learn that and a lot of people come to me and say, I need help because I don't want my kids behaving how I do, or things like that, because they're burnt out. When people are burnt out, their brain is the age of a 4-year-old. You wouldn't let a 4-year-old raise your kids.
Yeah.
Well, people then come to me, take responsibility, and say, I need to change this because the kid's going to grow up thinking that's normal. If two parents are arguing all the time, then the kid's going to think that's a normal relationship.
Yeah.
And that's going to mess them up when they're older. And then they're going to be conflicted when they go to their friend's house and their parents are all over each other, huggy, huggy, kissy, kissy. Oh, that's strange. Why are your parents behaving like that? Why aren't they shouting at each other? That's what's supposed to be. They then get a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. And they're going to bring that into their relationship, thinking that that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's just a pattern. And
Yeah.
it's good after listening to this episode, you are gonna, recognize the pattern, even if it's your parents. So tell me, for me, it was when my son was born, I had a huge conflict regarding myself as a person, myself as a father, and this image of masculinity. So I for the first time I was father, I was 36. Yeah. And for 36 years, there was an image of masculinity. And the result of it was a huge conflict. How was it for you? How do you see you as a stepfather and this image of masculinity?
Well, I've changed a lot in the past 6 years regarding that. I mean, I grew up watching John Wayne films, Clint Eastwood, and all of
Yeah,
them, and
yeah.
I took those Western characters, and I
Mm,
thought, that's what a man is, that's what I'm going to be, and that's what I was. that shit nearly killed me.
Yeah.
What is masculinity? Just be yourself. It's.
So easy.
I think so. Well, you got to love who you are, and if there are bits about yourself that you want to change, you have to do it for you to make you happy, not anybody else.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you make a mistake, own up to that mistake and change it, and things like that, and have that responsibility about yourself, and then you can pass that on and have that responsibility. And again, I'm not saying I get that right all the time, but I'm learning on something I've learned since I changed my life around. It's a
Yeah.
constant thing that will carry on. Will I ever get it perfect? Doubt it. But
Yeah.
I'm at a point where I'm happy with who I am, and there are bits about me I want to change, and there are some bits that I can't change. For instance, I'm type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed diabetic in 2020. That's been a massive life-changing uh, thing. And again, you can do things with diabetes where you get it right time and time again, but then all of a sudden it feels like, no, it's not going to work anymore. It's
Mm.
and that plays in your mind, and that winds you up, and that stresses you out and burns you out. And but I've got to live with that. That's what I've got, and I love being in the family I'm in and a partner, and there are times we do each other's head in, yes, and
Yeah.
probably more so me, because I can be annoying at times. I know that. And but again, since being with her, there's a lot I've learned about myself. I'm not that person. I mean, she probably wouldn't put up with me if she met 20-year-old me, 25-year-old me,
Yeah.
because I was an asshole. Um, I like to think I'm much better now and continue to push myself to be better. And I think that's what masculinity is well, for a man is to be the best you can be and be comfortable with who you are and confident with who you are. And yeah, I think that's how I describe that. Whether I'm right or not, that's another thing. It's just my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. But you started with Clint Eastwood and all the movies.
Hmm.
I probably had the same set of movies, which didn't help me at all because I had this image of masculinity. I'm changing the world. I'm traveling all over the planet. I'm doing, I'm seeing, I'm experiencing. So a lot of to do with myself, with my ego, with my development. And as a father, it didn't work out for me because I had to take care of a baby. So the whole concept changed for me. And whatever I was chasing till the age of 36, it was not relevant anymore. So this identity of me being a great man,
Mm.
exploring the world, it didn't work out anymore. And it was me staying at home taking care of a baby, which was quite a change. And right now I'm asking myself, why to the hell did I watch these Clint Eastwood movies? Because
Cool,
I
they're
don't
good.
have any I don't have any logical explanation for that one.
But the thing is, that's it. They're bloody good films, and that's all they are. They're not, you know, if you even do, because I love Western stuff and American history, and if
Yeah,
you look at what life was actually like there, it wasn't what we see in Hollywood, or the
yeah,
spaghetti westerns or any of that. There wasn't people going around, apart from the odd few, Wyatt Earp, that sort of thing. None of them John Wayne characters, because that's what he was, a character.
yeah,
And some of these actors become the characters they portray. Steven Seagal's famous for it.
yeah,
Um, but again, that's some people like them, some people don't. I guess that's how it is for everything in
I
life, isn't it?
I suppose it's a part of the learning. You said you are always growing, always learning something new, and that is a very good attitude. I'd like my children to always learn something new. I hope I will be able to teach them to always learn something new. It's not so easy at all. From my past relationships, I'd say, and my current relationship, I know that as a man, I tend to, the first attempt is to solve the problem of my wife. How would you say is the better approach to keep the relationship, thriving?
I think that's just a curse of being a therapist and coaching it. I'm the last person that can advise anybody on that. I think, and I get it, but obviously when she comes to me with a problem with something, I'm in fix it mode,
Yeah.
And then that becomes a problem because sometimes she does just want someone that she can vent to, let off steam with and stuff like that. She doesn't want a therapist or a coach, and I do struggle myself in having that separation. To me, I'm just trying to help. You probably know what that feels like, So you offer some advice, the next thing you know, you're getting tough because you're not being supportive, and you're thinking, well, I'm being supportive because I'm coming up with solutions to your problem here. But that's not what they wanted, is it? They wanted, so yeah, I'm not the person because I haven't mastered that one yet. Will I ever master that one? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, but you see, there is a self-reflection on that, and it's the beginning. Everyone has to, start somewhere. Next question is about our children. I know myself. I have some, outdated beliefs from my childhood. What would you say are the critical, outdated beliefs that we pass on our children without even really knowing it?
Things like we can't afford it. That's usually one that crops up. I remember hearing that quite a lot from my gran and granddad. Beggars can't be choosers. If you can't afford it, you don't have it. That sort of thing. Never, if you can't afford it, figure out how. They missed out on loads of opportunities in their life because they had that thing of, well, we can't afford it, so we don't have it. Brain shuts off.
Yeah.
It's a dead end thing, so it's not going to work out your problem because you haven't got a problem. You give it a solution, and it's not a good solution. We can't afford it. Okay, so how are we going to afford it? That's a better way to do it. You mentioned on our previous chat about there's your food, finish your plate. Make sure that plate's clean because food was scarce then. It ain't now. You can get to the supermarket and buy whatever you bloody want. It's right there. So you haven't got to worry about where your next meal is, or most people don't. And again, probably going to be controversial here, but the people who do say, "Oh well, I can't feed myself and my kids and blah blah blah," well, okay. How much is your mobile phone? How much is your telly? Things like that, But again, that's another topic.
Yeah.
But again, it's habits that get passed down, and people don't prioritize properly.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's good to know, some examples, because with an example, it's easier to find out and to figure out and to reflect. Oh, am I doing the same? Is he exactly talking about me? And it's a scary one. If you think he's talking about myself, oh, it's gonna be scary.
Trying to teach my stepson now about better money choices. He's got a little part-time job, he's getting his pocket money, he likes to spend it on Lego sets because that gives him his little happiness kick and whatever else. We
Yeah.
keep saying to him, you got to put money away now to save up for your driving lessons in a couple of years, you
Yeah.
know, your first car and all of that. And when he first started working, he did save up quite a bit for when we went on holiday. That's gone out the window now. And
Yeah.
he's got no bills. He pays for his Xbox gaming thing himself, and he's got a couple of little things that he pays for himself. But he's got no phone bill, he's got no electric bill, he's got no rent, the things that have to be paid, when you're an adult.
Yeah.
So we're trying to instill that in him now that you have to cover these proper things before you can get your. And if you can't afford what you want after, then figure out a way to do it or
Yeah.
stay stuck.
Yeah.
Everything's a choice in life.
Yeah. You still need to know it, that there is a choice.
Mhm.
What about your perspective on social media and our young generation?
Well, I'll say good old. Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, has just announced the social media ban for 16-year-olds. Now, I don't really know the details of it, but I'm assuming that it was a good idea that's now been passed through Parliament and is a shadow of its former self and is of use to no bugger. So I don't know what the ins and outs of it are. I haven't really looked into it yet, but it was only happened the other day. But I imagine they've messed it up and it's now crap. But yeah, social media for kids, they don't need they don't need what we watch and get stuff out. Last night we went to the pub up the road to watch the England game, and he sat next, and my stepson was sat next to me, and he's showing me things on his phone that are coming up, and they're all like current affairs of the day. And I said to him, "Well, why are you worried about that? Why are you worried about that? Why do you give a shit about that? That's got absolutely nothing to do with you. You're a 15-year-old lad. Why are you letting that bother you? You know, like, so I think in regards to that, yeah, they should be away from it to a point. I think I grew up in the 90s, early 2000s. I had a good mix of technology and old-fashioned playing outside and stuff. And he does go out with his mates and stuff, but at the time, if I wanted to go and play a PlayStation game with my other consoles all available, um, if I wanted to go and play a game, on a console with two-player, I'd either have to go to my mate's house or they'd have to come to mine. There was no. I mean, look at this now. I mean, I'm talking to you. I'm in the UK. You're in Germany,
Yeah.
and it's as if we're in the same room as each other. What the bloody hell's that? To kids, that's normal. They've
Yeah.
had that when I was a kid. Mobile phones were just starting to come in.
Yeah.
It was playing Snake on it. That was the highlight of having a.
And a
There was none of
snake,
it.
yes.
You could play console games on it. That was unheard of. So
Yeah.
now kids can just jump online and talk to people in America and listen to problems that are happening in America, and then they take it on board, and it becomes a big bloody problem. So I do agree with some sort of social media ban of some sort for kids, but also it's down to the parents. Down to the parents how much time the kids are on social media and online.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of parents let them do what they bloody want because it's the easy way out.
Yeah. It's also, as something that I discovered as a father, that when I do the right thing, it's gonna cost a lot of energy.
Mm.
And if I do the easy way, it doesn't cost the energy at first, but 2 or 3 years later, it's gonna cost a huge amount of energy, and I probably cannot repair it, which is kind of really new, experience for me.
Yeah.
Because before being father, I didn't see it. I didn't see the development of a child. I knew children are small, yeah, and they're learning, but I didn't know that they learn so much through repetition. And I need to repeat it always the same. I shouldn't change my mind, I shouldn't, change anything so that they get the line. They know what their values are. They know something about emotional regulation. They need to learn it from me, and not Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be always. I'm always there for my children because they are always learning from myself. And it's really huge responsibility. I wasn't aware, right now, my daughter is 4. I see some patterns. I see how she is learning from my role model. And I see that a lot of things are changing. My daughter is 4, and I'm having some books for a daughter to read out and to read loudly before she falls asleep. And there is global warming. Like, she's 4. Why should she care about global warming? And it's some, very wise people recommending that book. And I'm just a naive parent. I bought the book, and I thought, whoa, it's going to be great because so many good reviews. Everything's going to be fine. And at the end, I have to discuss with my 4-year-old daughter what is global warming, how it works, and why is it there. And whoa. So it was quite a new experience. And, now I know before I buy a book, I have to know what is inside, and then everything's going to be fine. That's more or less, I hope so. Yeah. What about AI? Are you using AI?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of them, got its benefits, can save you a lot of time, but my God, like most technology, is dangerous,
Yeah.
I mean, I use it in my business quite often, sometimes because I'm a hypnotherapist and coach. I'm not a content creator. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not a TikToker, and got no interest in being. So sometimes I don't have ideas for posts, but I know I've got to keep it there. So I have post ideas, and do videos about that, and you can tell it to be exactly what you want it to be, and it's brilliant in that sense. But also, again, it's stopping us from using our brains because the answers are there. Again, thing with, like, when I say to my stepson about his own work, like when I was his age, yeah, we had the internet, but it wasn't like it is now. Because if you're stuck on a question, your answers are there on your bloody phone. Wikipedia, Google, just look, find the answer, do something to, you ain't got to go to the library anymore to find a book and find, it's, but I suppose looking at it, to me, then that makes that life easier, but he's never experienced that life. So to him, maybe that's difficult, I don't know. But I'll never understand it because I've never can't be in that position, can I? So, but
Yeah, but
AI
it's
make, I mean, what it can do, its possibilities, it's scary, really, of what it can do.
yeah. I have the impression it can manipulate people, and that is, just a thought. But it's kind of
posts on
important.
Facebook now are just AI dribble. Someone's just sat there, like, make a post about this, and up it comes, and I just copy pasted it and put it on, and people take that as real, and it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Definitely.
I could probably ask AI now to make a convincing post that 9/11 never happened,
Yeah.
and it would do it. And I could post that, and there'd be people out there that would believe it, and
Yeah.
It's dangerous, you know.
Still, everything is possible, you know.
Yeah. But
It's
again, it has its uses as well. You know, if
yeah,
you was looking at an alternative universe story, give me some ideas of what what New York would have been like if 9/11 ever happened. Therefore, you know, it'd be beneficial.
yeah,
You know, in that sort of sense, as long as it's done properly. So,
yeah. One question about your legacy. What would you say is your legacy? What do you care about? You're not gonna be here forever, I suppose.
no, I don't know. I think at one point in my life it would have been I would want to change the world in some way. But maybe if I could just change someone's world, you know, my
Mm-hmm.
clients, my family, and to be able to learn maybe from my mistakes. And I think if I can do that and people have a better life because of that, then I'll be happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
Not after, you know, being like Elon Musk and being a trillionaire and being known for that. I don't want to be a prime minister, a president, or I don't want to know that business. I might have done 15 years ago, but not now.
Yeah,
I just, if I can, when my time comes, I've had a happy life. The people around me have had a happy life, and the people I've worked with have changed their lives, and I've helped them change their world, and that's all I want.
yeah, yeah. It sounds very mature. You are not 20 anymore. I can hear
If I met 20-year-old me, I'd probably smack me in the mouth. So
it.
I wouldn't
So,
even say anything to him. I'd just headbutt him.
what about some fatherhood truths? What is the
So
one thing every son needs from his father?
time, affection, love. Might sound soppy, might sound soft, but kids don't understand why you're going to work and they don't need to. Not when they're little. You know, kids don't need to understand about money when they're little. What they do understand is why is mom and dad not spending time with me? Why, when they are spending time with me, are they stuck on their phone? They understand. They don't understand the technical bit of it, but they understand that it's having a shitty effect on them and how it makes them feel. Um, so all kids deserve. No kids has to be here. You know, it was the parents' fault that that's happened. You know, so if you've decided to stick around and raise that child, then have some responsibility. Invest your time, invest your knowledge, your love and affection in that child, and see what adult they'll go up to be.
Yeah, great, great. And you started with the time. Spend time with your children. It's great.
Money you
So,
can get back, health you can get back to a point.
yeah,
Time you'll never get time back. Once it's gone, it's gone.
yeah, definitely. And it passes all the time. So, one lesson your child taught you.
That I'm not always right.
You are not?
No.
Oh
Then
my
again,
gosh.
I'd tell him, you know, if I do something wrong, you know, if I'm having a bad day and I stop for no reason, or you know, or if he's winding me up and he's playing and I just bite and tell me about it. Because it's,
Yeah.
it doesn't, again, might be different for younger kids, but he's about to become an adult. So he needs to know, because if he allows me to do that and he hasn't got his boundaries, he's not going to take them into the workplace. Or if he's at college and that the kid who thinks he's Billy Big Bollocks and he's the bully, they'll walk all over him, and that's not going to happen. He knows when I'm being serious. He knows when I'm being, parenting, discipline role and whatever else. And he also knows when, if he's caught me at a bad time and I've snapped at him or something, and I said to him, "Tell me about it, because it's not right." And I'm not allowed to speak to you in that way. So tell me.
Mm.
And I think by doing that, that teaches me as well, that, because it's not a world of do as I say, not as I do. No, if you're a parent, you're a leader. Lead the child,
Mm.
teach them, show them, lead them.
Yeah. Day by day, day by day. It's not, 1 hour a week.
And I'm always
So,
learning from him.
what is the one belief you have completely changed your mind about after, um, seeing your stepchild in action, I'd say?
Maybe kids ain't a complete burden that I once thought they were. There's some. I mean, I'll never have that attachment that a real father would have. Like you have your kids because they're from you, and and I've never had that. I've never wanted my own kids. Yeah, I think that's changed. I was always dead set against kids, and I never wanted to be around them. And or if I did, it was because I like playing with kids because I can be a kid myself again. But
Yeah.
as soon as I start crying and whinging, I'll hand the kid back to the parent and go, "Hey, that's your problem now." I've had my fun and enjoyment. I don't want none of that crap. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I think even with that crap, when it does happen, it's still quite a nice experience in a weird way. So I think
Yeah.
that belief's changed.
Yeah. It's a great, great one. What about one habit that makes you a better father, stepfather?
Remembering that I'm a leader, not a therapist, not a coach.
And how can you, do it? How can you create a habit on that?
I think by talking, spending time with him, showing him when he does do wrong, rather than just correct him,
Mm.
let him ask him the questions so he can figure out where he went wrong and what he could do next time. Yeah, I think that, to be that leader for the child.
It was not it was not easy.
No.
It is not easy. It's, yeah,
And
exhausting.
again, that's
Exhausting,
just
I'd
my
say.
view, my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right, but it's what I think is the important things. Some people might think differently. That's fine.
No.
As long as you're getting the best and teaching the kid to be the best person they can be, that's a definite. That should be happening, and everybody and everyone who's a parent, step parent, whatever, should be wanting that for the kid.
No. So, one thing the fathers worry too much about.
So this is a tricky question. I think all parents worry about being a failure. And some people worry about it too much. But if we think about it, we become it. So we need to reframe it. And instead of being scared of being a failure, we need to think more positively about being a success.
Mm-hmm.
Again, being that leader, being that role model, being that person that the kid looks up to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the one thing fathers don't worry about enough would be?
Again, for some, it is. I think some do need that fear of being a failure because some people are crap at the job.
Yeah.
That's a fact. And some are unwilling to learn and unwilling to adapt and things like that. So I think some people do need to worry about the fact, but again, in a positive way, so they can
Yeah.
adapt, they can change and show a kid the right way. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
not all kids get that, you know. Um, Not the child's fault; it's the adult's fault. The adult
Yeah.
needs to be an adult. Um, but again, they should worry about when they're dead. Will the kid think back to their childhood and think, oh, well, dad was always out earning money and whatever else. And or I think, you know what, I spent a lot of time with him, we had some great memories. And again, that's the thing that needs a balance, isn't it? Because we need money to survive, but we also need that happiness, their memories, them life lessons and life events.
Yeah.
So you need to worry about getting the right mix. But don't worry about it. Work at it
Yeah.
and get it and succeed at it.
It's funny. Like yesterday, I was riding a bus with my son for the first time, creating memories. It's like
Yeah.
event of the day, event of the day,
Yeah.
riding
I
a
remember the
bus.
first time I went on a bus with my dad. I've got to have been about 5 or 6 maybe. I was going to the cinema. I can't remember what we
Yeah.
went to see, but I remember the bus.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how our brains create memories, but it's a
Yeah.
different topic. So let me go for the last three questions. What truth about fatherhood are you still discovering?
Everything. Like I say, it's one constant learning environment, and what you do right one day might be wrong the next day, or what you
Yeah.
do wrong one day is right the next day, and it all depends. And as the kid gets older, it changes again, and nobody knows because each day is a new day, and each day is different, and
Yeah.
I suppose if someone's got an older child who's an adult, and then they have a kid again when that child's grown up, maybe they've got a. But again, that kid's a different person. It's a different personality. They're a different, so you can't replay the same patterns. You got,
Yeah.
and every day is a learning curve. Every day is and for those who want to learn and adapt, then brilliant, do it and become good at it.
Every child is different, and I learned it with my second child.
Mm.
You have only one, so you have a different experience, different perspective, but
Mm.
we still have the same learning curve. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Told you, I'll just go and headbutt him. So, do it differently. Yeah, just that. Like, first of all, don't buy a van. Forget that. Go and stack shelves in a supermarket. You'll be happier. Um, yeah. Uh, but yeah, I don't think I'd like to meet 20-year-old me. Um, he's not somebody I'd have anything in common with. Really, he's not somebody I'd like. And he wouldn't like me. But again, I'd say that. But again, I'll say don't get a van and all that, but then that leads me up to where I am now. And like I said before, the worst part of my life was also the best, because that's changed my life, transformed who I am, and
Yeah.
I am better for it.
Mm.
You know, I've got different people around me now, and I'm just a different person. And so, would I change that if I could go back? No, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you now. I wouldn't have the knowledge I have now.
Yeah.
I'd probably just bore the hell out of him about investing and whatever, and he wouldn't listen to me. And as all 20-year-olds do, because I knew everything then, and you know, I've got all the time in the world, and
Yeah.
oh, crack on then, you asshole. Yeah, I just had a
Yeah.
conversation with 20-year-old self in my head now, and I didn't like it, so I don't want one.
Yeah, it's it's huge difference between 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And
If you're progressing, yeah, you know, and if you
okay,
like,
it's a
if
good
you're
one,
still,
yeah.
there are still 30 odd year olds who are still late teens, early 20s, because they've never had really anything happen in their life, or they've been happy to be there, and that's fine, whatever. That has
Okay.
consequences and effects, isn't it?
It's scary, but you might be right on that one. I've never thought about it. I actually thought everyone is progressing. Some people
Mm.
faster and some people slower. Yeah, that was my belief, old belief. I
Mhm.
do not need it anymore. So, another one. The last question of the day. If your children listen to this episode, if your stepchild listens to this episode, what's the one thing you would want them to remember? So, if my son and your son one day are watching this episode, what should they remember?
Nobody's right. Be yourself. Do what you think's right. And if it all goes down the toilet, figure out what went wrong and sort it out, and go again and go again and go again until you've got the outcome that you desire. Don't give up. You just go for it. And doesn't matter what other people think or what other people tell you to do. You do what you think's best. That's about it, really, I think.
That's
Because
the last message.
I can't tell people what to do. I can't, even as a therapist and coach, I never tell people what to do. There's some clients I work with, you know, and there's an answer screaming in my head and they're just not getting there, but I've got to help them get to it, because I can't tell them what to do. They need to come up with it. And it might be obvious to me, but I haven't got that emotional link attached to it. And that's how I help people, you know. They've got to work through that emotional shit to get to the logical stuff, and then have that. So the same is with kids, you know. Can't tell them
Yeah.
what to do. They've got to become their own person.
Yeah. Amazing message. Chris, thank you so much for your time, for being
Thank you for
with
inviting
us,
me
for
again.
sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And thank you for having me on your podcast. Yes.
It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the day.
Do take care now.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.